Greetings, coming to you from Tbilisi, Georgia. The great irony of being a reflector. In the modern day, we are living in this deeply homogenized society, and the irony is that as a reflector, you are actually the most normal person. To be a reflector is the most normal thing in the entire universe. It is practically the definition of normality. And yet, here in the homogenized society, you have 99% of the population trying so hard to be normal when they're actually not. And that makes it actually ironical because to be a reflector is completely unique. To actually be normal is completely unique in a world where 99% of people are trying so hard to be normal, but they're not. 99% of people are not normal. 99% of people have a lot of uniqueness in them. They are completely unique perspectives. Reflectors are also completely unique perspectives, each person, but it's a different type of uniqueness. It's an order of magnitude more normal than anyone else on the planet. So I always think it's so funny to see people trying to be normal, and it comes so naturally to people like us, to reflectors like me, that it's not really a question. It's just kind of, you just kind of do it. And some of my favorite reflectors are Fyodor Dostoevsky, and I believe Victor Hugo and Freddie Mercury are also reflectors. Dostoevsky is my favorite author. He gets very existential and really dives into so many of those areas that I really feel are just really rich and enlivening to life to investigate. Things like the philosophy of the existence of God and morality. And you delve into his books, and especially The Brothers Karamazov is what I'm always thinking of when I say Dostoevsky. You dive into this book and you have these rich, vibrant characters that are coming from completely different places. You have Ivan, who is very cognitive and very mental, and then you dive into his brother Alyosha, who's very spiritual and is really coming from the place of being grounded in his G center, really grounded in his identity of who he is, and also giving that identity over spiritually. And then you dive into their brother Dmitri, Mitya, who is very grounded in his body. And in the book, he gets a little bit of flack for this, as people are apt to when they're grounded in their body and when they're grounded in things like money, food, sexuality. But at the same time, he's representing an important aspect of being human. Then you have the half-brother, Smedjikov, who is the shadow aspect of the family. And Fyodor Karamazov, when the author's name is Fyodor Dostoevsky. Very interesting. And their father is actually quite kind of a drunk, quite at least in his later years, it's said that he's kind of degenerated and isn't really such a reliable person anymore. In many ways, I think this is how Dostoevsky may have seen an aspect of himself, and the way that these characters come through, it's like, it's so deep. It's so deep into these characters because I believe Dostoevsky had a perspective. He had a perspective where he was able to actually feel like these characters were part of himself, and he was pulling out these different aspects of his own soul and putting them out onto the paper. And this can sometimes be what it's like to be a reflector. Actually, it's funny because I do have a significant degree of uniqueness, of course, not to completely dismiss that, but people tend to project whatever they want onto me. It can be very astounding. It can be very astounding. People of all different political stances talk to me about their political stances and tend to assume that I have the same politics after, if we talk for 10 or 20 minutes, they'll just start to assume that I agree with them and everything. When I go into a church or to some religious context, the priest tends to assume that I am deeply spiritual and kind of saintly myself. I'm not going to divulge how actually spiritual or saintly I am, but I go into a yoga ashram, and the yogi thinks I am secretly a guru who has come to teach them and is clothed myself in the image of a Sravaka, a student, in order to become their teacher. The police look at me and not immediate. Sometimes they actually do think I'm just a normal person, because that is who I am. That is kind of the thing that's let off. But also when they're in like a suspicious mode, they look at me and they assume I'm a criminal. They assume that the normalcy is like some kind of mask that I'm putting on to hide the thing that they're looking for. And all of these people, they're all looking for this thing. They're all looking for this thing that is the thing that they're interested in, or the thing that they believe is important in their lives. And they all tend to see that in the reflector. It's quite a way of being. It's quite a way of being. I've gotten to see all sorts of different things, and sometimes on a lot of different vibrational frequencies too. Some of these vibrational frequencies are kind of whack, by the way. So I wouldn't necessarily recommend just like going in and surveying all of them. Some of them, it's better to keep a distance from. I ended up in some like kind of like really strange places, and those are the sorts of places you don't want to go without a map, without a compass, without a plan, and without having a real reason to be there, because you don't want to be pulled along by somebody else's reason to certain places. That being said, though, it could be very easy to get pulled along, and it could be kind of like a fun adventure. But you want to be careful that the people who are pulling you along are at a sufficient vibration, and they have enough integrity in themselves that you're not going to get tangled up in some of these problematic areas of life, which are, it's always a danger. It is always a danger when you're following other people, when you're allowing them to pull you along and allowing them to project onto you. Or sometimes it doesn't feel like allowing because nobody has taught you how to have strong boundaries. But learn that it is allowing, and that you can actually disallow that as well. And that is real empowerment, that you can actually block off and refuse this energy. And also being centered and grounded in yourself, and knowing that you're worth it, that it's worth it for you to refuse the energy that is not right for you, and to refuse even the people that are not right for you. It's not about rejecting people. I know rejecting people does not feel right, especially because from this perspective of complete normality as I see it. Every single human being out there is doing their best. They're doing their best. They have the best intentions, and they're carrying those intentions through insofar as they are able to empathize with other people, insofar as they are able to perceive and conceptualize the world, insofar as they have attained self-knowledge and self-mastery over themselves. So everyone on that level is doing their best and is doing their best work. And I believe that that deserves to be honored. I believe that people, every person, regardless of who they are, unconditionally deserves to be honored for who they are. There are also situations where, take a simple example, self-defense. You obviously sometimes need to hurt somebody in order to protect yourself. And this is an exceedingly rare circumstance where you actually need to hurt somebody, but there's a reason that is considered legal, and it's because it's such an incredibly low vibration to feel that you're not able to protect yourself if that situation ever were to arise. But as Napoleon Hill once lamented, there's no law against if infecting people with your negativity or giving people bad negative thoughts. So that's something that you've really got to take care of and take responsibility for yourself, because our society is not ready to protect you in that entire realm of being. Our society is not ready to protect and empower you mentally. So that's something that you need to find the right community and find the right people and find the right resources, or just delve into and be true to yourself, because that's where all power is really coming from. All of these other things out there, they are helping to reflect back to you. Now, this is whoever you are. All of these resources are reflecting back to you something that's going on inside you. And usually when we're studying things and learning things, these are things that have to do with your mind. So you're getting reflected back to you aspects and areas of your mind. This subject, say economics, is in one area of your mind. Maybe there's even a physical correlate in your brain structure. Art has a different type of area of your mind that it occupies. Now, we're not talking about brain regions. We're talking about mind regions. There are all of these different subjects have different areas of your mind, and yes, there are most likely fairly standard correlates in the way that the brain is activated by the mind. But you're not actually seeing that most of the time. So let's stick to talking about mind, something that we can actually directly observe. All of these things happening in the mind, this is you learning about yourself by looking out into the world and internalizing things out in the world. The issue is that basically there is so much potential of things that you can learn. I'm not even sure how to come up with an estimate. Maybe say there's 1 million lifetimes worth of information that you can learn about, which would help you fill out the map of your entire mind. So you're only getting a very tiny portion of that, such a small portion of your mind reflected back to you, that you literally will never have a chance in your entire lifetime to finish the whole process. And different people with different lifestyles. There's a vastly varying degree here. Um, for some people, they might learn and fill out their mental awareness 1,000 times more than another person in the same lifetime. So there is dramatic variance, but the thing to note is that even that person who's filled out 1,000 times their mental awareness is most likely only experiencing a tiny, tiny millionth of a fragment of, or even much more, a Googleplexith of their entire mental potential there. So the way that we select the exploration of this relative infinity is actually determining our path forward in this life. So this relates back to what I was saying earlier, because your exploration, the things that you are learning about, you'll never have time to learn all of the details and all of the perspectives of everything. There are a few situations, maybe, in your life where you will go in and you will learn about the situation from thousands, tens of thousands of perspectives and angles, and you'll have millions of thoughts on this subject over your lifetime. Most likely these subjects are things that were significant events in your childhood, things that are very significant or emotional events during adulthood, and your professional life, maybe a few different occupational roles, and your role as a parent or a spouse. Other than that, other than these key roles and situations, almost nothing else is even close in your mind to being filled out in terms of the perspectives and thoughts and different ways that you can play with understanding the situation. So it's very important to consider what the point of filling out this mental awareness is, what the point of these experiences is, because the point will guide you. The point can guide you. When you don't have a point, you're following others. And make no mistake, somewhere down the line, those others are following someone or something inside them that has a point and a purpose and an intention. And if you're not aware of what that purpose and intention is, you're most likely going to, at the best case, be wasting your time, and at the worst case, being involved in something which might be wasteful or damaging to your soul or to other people or to your experience of life on this planet. So always follow the point. Follow your motivation and purpose. Keep diving in deeper and see what that purpose is. Even as a reflector, this is very important, because if you're not following your purpose, you will have these problems. So that's a little bit about what it's like to be a reflector and what you need to know to be having a good life while you can. And even though you may be reflecting everything from ever blah, 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 all of the people in your life think they are who they want you to be. They all think you're the thing they desire. You could actually be the most normal person in the entire world. Ironic, and in an ironical world where everyone else is pretending to be normal, trying so hard to be normal, but is actually not normal. It's so funny. It's so funny. So this is Daniel Wilder coming from Tbilisi, Georgia. God bless.